Hey there, Goa fans. This is Mark, DJ Solitaire here with episode 77 of Retro Goa Explorations, my weekly series in which I share in every episode one of my favorite tracks from the 1990s Goa Trance psychedelic dance movement. So, episode 77, double seven, magical number, magical combination, and really from a magical time in the Goa scene. The 96 to 97 season was really pivotal with lots of changes taking place in terms of production styles, musical flavors, new projects coming out. And this is one of them. This is the first track that I remember hearing from a fantastic and quite fabled production project, which was, interestingly, a combination of two bands. And so, not just two musicians getting together, we've got four musicians from one project with two musicians from another. We have six musicians working on this track and the other magical tracks that they put together. It was early-ish to mid 1997 when I was once again over at Richard DJ Purple's place in my neighborhood in London of Tufnell Park. We lived just a few blocks away. Last time I talked about deltas as a child, I could walk on the ceiling, which I remember listening to upstairs in his bedroom. On this occasion, I remember very clearly being downstairs in the main room where his roommate, Sam Astronomics, had his big studio, big mixing desk, and off to one side, there was this turntable. And I remember looking at this evocative reddish, orange, yellow album cover with a crop circles on it rather. And what a project. And this first track that I heard by them is their breakthrough, the first single that they put out on Oracle Recordings, Full Mental Jackpot, which, is a play on the movie Full Metal Jacket. And it is full of all kinds of sounds and it is mental. And holy moly, do you feel like you struck the jackpot with this track? Because there is 11 and a half minutes of absolute insanity, incredible music. So, as if the, Pleiadians and Etnica project of those four Italian musicians together weren't enough. They got together with their friends from Lotus Omega, Filippo Scrimizzi and Francesco D'Amato, who also sometimes went by the name Franco Rossi on some of his productions. And these tracks were made at the Soundbusters studio where Etnica was making their music at the time. Filippo, before all six musicians got together, Filippo would sometimes go over to their studio. They were all friends and they made some tracks together and they used to play really loud. And so eventually the studio owner moved them upstairs as far away from everybody else as possible. Fifth floor, no elevator, no air conditioning. Welcome to Italy. And they got together, pulled their equipment together, still had that Mackie 32 channel mixer that Etnica and Pleiadians were using at the time. And six musicians all taking turns on the computer and running up and doing something and so on. So it got a little bit chaotic. But that's part of that excitement and that enthusiasm. And also, which I think adds to this, it was a really neat detail that Maori shared with me that Filippo had reminded him of, is that they had a rule that during the mixdown, they all had to dance. So they weren't allowed to sit still or weren't allowed to sit even. So they were all there. And this energy and movement, with all those six creative musicians expressing themselves physically through the music that they've created. I've said several times in this series that I think that the energy of the producers, not just as they were creating the music, but also when they were doing the actual mixdown, I think translates. I think we feel something. It's quite different nowadays where, you do everything before and then, you click a little button and whoop, the file renders in, 5, 10, 20 seconds and or however long it takes. And it's not quite the same thing. And so this music is incredibly intense. like the title would suggest. There's a lot of this sort of very otherworldly harmonies, which I'll be pointing out. A lot of really incredible riffs. Some of the sounds as well have a real cyber rock sound to them. I think it was both Lotus Omega members, but certainly Filippo, who had a bit of a rock background. And there's just a lot of really interesting patterns that are all combined, and with a grand arc, an incredible story. Now, later on that year, there would be a remix that would be released, which I adore, and it's completely different. It's lyrical and beautiful, and it's also mystical, but with a very different flavoring, completely different. And I was debating whether to do that one together with this, but I want this one to stand on its own. It is really so different. That other one came out on the CD single, a super rare one, which I managed to get directly from the guy who ran the label of Oracle Recordings, Tom, who I met up with in late 97 or early 98. And he gave me several copies. Sorry, don't have any left. I was asked to give them to DJs and also some other labels, some other folks when I was going to Japan. So that's where they went. So, but anyway, I'd heard the other mix of Full Mental Jackpot on DAT beforehand. And of course, there's the vinyl. I never got a copy of the vinyl of Full Mental Jackpot, unfortunately. But, oh boy, what a track, as we will hear in a moment. Now, as is often the case with this music, there's a lot going on all at once. So it's difficult for me at times to decide what it is that I'm going to point out, because there's so many different layers, so many amazing riffs, and they really do an incredible job in terms of the overall structure of the track, which is massive, 11 and a half minutes of this absolute intensity. And it's got a really cosmic feel. It's got a lot of cyber rock, I think, elements. It's a term that I made up, which I think fits. And I just absolutely love it. I'm actually not sure that I've ever played this out. I'd like to now. I mean, you all know that I really love the lyrical stuff, and so the other mix is one that I definitely played out a lot. But this full power, mystical, under the stars, being, messages being beamed up and beamed down. I think this is, 2 a.m, maybe between 1 and 2 a.m. When I like this kind of uplifting, intense music before things go darker, and then before you start moving to the light. That's just my personal approach. I don't think all nighttime stuff needs to be dark, and dark stuff isn't all necessarily introspective. I think this has darker elements, but there's an uplifting intensity to it that I think is, as I've named before, again, there's a lot of mixtures of emotions to being human and being whatever you decide we are, whatever our consciousness is. There's more than one thing going on at once. And so that's why I think not only musically are so many things happening at once, but there's a lot of different emotional flavors that interact. And I think that's one of the things that makes a lot of this music so powerful, and this one most certainly. So let's give this one a listen. Crop Circles, magical track, Full Mental Jackpot. So right away we get this very cool riff with this very neat rhythm and all these different harmonic things going on, right? The undulating riff and then the harmonic stuff above it. Then we get that lower bass thing and also some weird sounds. They all sound like voices, don't they? And then we get that sheet metal kind of like dramatic and exclamatory. And really creative with the percussion to lead into the 4 on the floor. No idea what those voices are saying. Listen how many things are happening at once. Still have that sheet metal stuff going on. Get those hi-hats and the percussive element. Now we're really in full hypnotic loop here. Interesting voices that are a little bit more in the background here, not quite as prominent. This build up. And this riff. Again, it has pitch, but it doesn't have notes. And it's a little bit predicting a couple of key riffs that are going to be coming. One of them has some note values there. And then, 2 minutes into it, here we get this insanity. Real head-banging, absolute thrash cyber metal insanity. Now we get more of those Etnica Pleiadian sounds, and notice the up and the down, so that kind of call and answer quality. Cool whoosh up, and then now this is a really interesting riff. It develops quite differently in the remix, but here it's kind of really transitional. It's a little bit floatier. It doesn't quite resolve musically and tonally. There's a wonderful sort of little floaty interlude. There's still all this other intensity going on. There's one voice where we get a little bit more staccato here. So there's a couple of figurations where the notes are a little bit shorter. And then we get things doubled up. The original one is still voiced there, but it's a little further in the background. And then, again, that anguished Etnica Pleiadian's cry. Like, what is going on? Why is this happening? Very inquisitive. And again, notice the call and the answer. One of them goes down and the other one goes up. And this starts leading into, again, another wonderful transition that leads into, I think, the key riff. More sounds than I can even point out here. Notice the rhythmic stuff there. A little bit of a granular quality to it. This clarion call, this kind of trumpeting, triumphant kind of energy. These celestial beings sort of coming to our rescue, it feels like. And then this is going to get doubled up, I think, on this round here. Drum build up. Takes on a different flavor with this instrumentation, doesn't it? The rhythmic quality to it, as well as the harmonic. Magic. Then, a little bit more mystical. Kind of a little more inquisitive and introspective again. Are we sure about this? And that drum build up. And the rhythm of these riffs. Right, so we've got things that are syncopated, go on the offbeat and pause. So they really take on dimension and shape. Love those leafy sounds, and then up an octave. Yet another round. And there's really like a lot of communication back and forth, it feels like here, where, you know, these different moods, question and answer and statements and so on. Very interesting little bass line that I hadn't quite noticed before, that little pattern. Those picks. Now here we get one of those patterns that's it's pitched, but it doesn't have notes, right? Not tones, rather, on the keyboard. Again, a great sort of one of those mystical. Notice on the last one of the loop, harmonic change. And then that leads beautifully into that one. And it's more lyrical here. This one's more legato, more flowing. Really, it's like all these different aliens talking at the same time. The kick again. Intensity. We get some of that, those original sounds from the beginning, sort of those dramatic statements. All that goes up, and then there's actually less going on here than in most places in the track, which is amazing, because still tons happening. An insistent sound there. Have some of those introductory sounds coming in again. And then just part of that key riff, just looped. You're just trying to emphasize a point, and then it breaks out of that. Still going. I think the breakout comes on the next round, I think. There's the kick. Some of that upper frequency stuff. Again, all these different parts of different riffs that come together and just emphasize some aspect of the message. Really cool combination of tones here. It's a minor second and a major third. That gating and all those other figurations coming in at the same time. And there's really like this sense of coming to an end here with the way those notes cascading down. All of these sounds. Such an alien quality to the intervals as well as the sonorities and all those other hidden voices. I mean, those note patterns, they really remind me of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, right? Where there's that 5 note pattern that was being communicated back and forth between the aliens and the Earthlings. And, you listen to that 4 note pattern that I pointed out, that minor second and the major third down there. And the top one, I think, starts on I think it's the minor seventh of the key of the track. So some really, really interesting combinations of notes, which, as that old Space Tribe track that I think I featured already, Geomatrix says, combination of notes, they're really kind of an alien message. So, wow, 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 wow. Just absolute magic by 6 musicians working and dancing together as they produced this masterpiece of a track. So I will feature the remix of this one, which I just love. And I mean, it's not only a completely different mood. This is like full intensity of the night, and the other one's really sunrise or, later in the morning where there's much more lyrical quality. And it actually, I think on one level, it does one, they take a riff and I think there's a pitch change where it almost seems to resolve the whole thing. It's really quite fascinating. But this one, just amazing, middle of the night intensity, uplifting, inquisitive, exclamatory, anguished, expressive, all these different high intensity emotions that just would make a dance floor explode, especially if you are on the dance floor under the stars. A little side note, I'm not sure if I've mentioned this before, but I just came back from 2 amazing festivals, ZNA and Ozora. And something that's going on outside nowadays, because we're into multi-day festivals, is the heat gets intense during the day, so you need awnings over the dance floor during the day, and they stay up during the night, right? They're not retractable. And this places a kind of ceiling between you and the stars. And back then, when we were looking at primarily, 1 night parties, they might continue into the next one, but at nighttime, you were under the stars. There was nothing between you and the stars, and it felt like this music was connecting you and creating a bridge between you and the stars. And it's a little bit lacking now in the settings that we're finding ourselves in as we listen to this music in multi-day festivals. Perhaps not the same for 1 night events, but I think people have sort of gotten into the habit of just creating these awnings, and I'm really into this sort of, keep everything open, keep it open up there. So, personally, I'll tend to sort of get a little bit outside of the dance floor under the awning, and so we can have a little bit of that direct communication up there. So, just a little thought. Of course, I'm a weakling when it comes to the heat, so I want the awning during the day. I absolutely get it, but there is a little bit of a consequence, I think, to being cut off from the stars. Anyway, so we've got this music that does connect us to all kinds of places in outer space, and I am going to stop blabbering on and let you listen to the entire track without my commentary so you can appreciate the absolute unbelievable magic in this incredible production by Crop Circles, Full Mental Jackpot.